Okay, so today I'm going to do sort of a part 2 follow up on the last video I did about the proposed Kiss biopic. I had some more ideas of what they could do because, I think they're probably planning on doing like a salacious exploitation type of flick, that focuses on the sex and drugs aspect of rock stardom. They'll probably have lots of nudity, and maybe they'll conclude with the band getting their first platinum record or playing Madison Square Garden or something like that. But, that would be kind of boring. Seems like that's been done. I really feel like what they need for this movie, and not to say you can't include a lot of the sex and drugs stuff, but there really needs to be more at the film's core than just your typical exploitation rock and roll flick. It's got to have heart. It needs some kind of human interest story to really grab your attention instead of just the same old, same old. And that's why I think what they really should do is maybe focus on an individual band member. Like, for instance, I think that Gene Simmons' life story would be very compelling because you probably already know the story of him emigrating with his mother from Israel. I think that would be very compelling. You could start there. And of course, you could cover his days in Kiss, the rise of Kiss, and if you focused on an individual band member, of course, you would have Kiss would be part of the backdrop. The other individual members would be supporting players. And I really think Gene Simmons' life story would be a great story to tell. You could focus on, you could talk about the groupies, so you could have your nudity, his celebrity relationships, like with Cher and Diana Ross. And then I think that, the second half of the movie could be like the love story with him and Shannon Tweed. And I think the great conclusion of the movie would be, you could do the Tiger Stadium reunion, but I think the conclusion of the love story would probably be the wedding, would be a great way to wrap things up with that. But I really think Gene's life story would be compelling. And another one, I think that Peter Criss actually would have a very compelling life story. His thing would be sort of like a Bronx Tale, except, he's from Brooklyn, so it'd be more like a Brooklyn Tale. But you could cover his youth, him growing up in Brooklyn, meeting Gene Krupa, his interactions with the mob. And then I think a great conclusion to the Peter Criss story would be winning the People's Choice Award for Beth. That might be a good conclusion, him winning the people. Or you know what? That his time after the group, when he left Kiss, has some compelling things to it as well, His failed solo career, the time the guy tried to steal his identity. You could even have like a cameo from Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold. They could play themselves. And I think a really great finale to the Peter Criss story, and of course the other Kiss band members would be a big part of the Peter Criss story, obviously, would be the great finale would be him singing Hard Luck Woman at the Kiss convention. I think that would be a great feel-good ending for a Peter Criss / Kiss story. That would be great. I mean, him hooking up with the band playing Hard Luck Woman, I think that would be fantastic, His life story is very compelling. He had the earthquake where he put the gun to his head and thought about killing himself. I think it'd be a great story, Peter Criss. And even Paul Stanley, I joked about Paul Stanley in the last video about his mental health struggles and his ear. But, I actually think that would be a compelling story. If you want to focus on Paul Stanley, his turbulent childhood, his dysfunctional upbringing, his struggles with his ear, you can maybe talk about his sexuality, the ambiguousness of that. Paul Stanley has something of a compelling story, and maybe the finale of his story could be him doing the Phantom of the Opera. That might be a good conclusion to the Paul Stanley story. Not quite as compelling as I would say as Gene Simmons or Peter Criss, but there's some there to work with, beyond just the typical salacious sex and drugs and rock and roll. I think there's some there in terms of human interest and a real story arc. Now, ironically, the least compelling story of the four members would be Ace Frehley. And even though Ace generally seems to be the most popular band member, he seems to be everybody's favorite. When they ask your favorite member of Kiss, a lot of people say Ace Frehley. He's probably my favorite member. But ironically, he has the least compelling story of the four. I just don't really see anything, any kind of real arc there that you could do for Ace Frehley. But Ace Frehley would be perfect. He would be a great supporting character because he would be your comic relief. Much the same way that he was in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. He would be a great supporting character. He would be your comic relief. So whichever story you chose to tell, Gene, Peter, or Paul, you would have, the other guys would be in the background and Ace Frehley would be a big part of it. He'd be your comic relief. And I think that would be the way to go, because if you focus on the first 4 years and you do the sex and drugs thing and the nudity, there just isn't real there. You wrap the show up, oh, they got a platinum record, big fucking deal, They played Madison Square Garden. Who cares? Where's the human interest? I mean, even Tommy Thayer's story is more compelling. His sort of rags to riches. I love this story about how Gene kind of plucked him from obscurity. He had the mediocre hair metal band, Black and Blue. Gene told him straight up, hey guy, you're not going to make it in music. You'll never make it. Come work for me. And sort of the way he worked his way up, sort of his Rocky Balboa story in the Kiss organization, the way he worked himself up from basically being a gopher, from basically being the band bitch, to being, on stage with the band. And I think that would be a great sort of Horatio Alger kind of Rocky Balboa story. Tommy Thayer's rags to riches, and the finale could be him on stage with the band. And like I said in the last video, you could show the part where Ace punched him out at the gig, and where he got no respect from Ace and Peter. And then at the end of the movie, he showed everybody by being the guy in the band. But these are just some more ideas I had for the Kiss biopic. And since it's coming to Netflix, really, I think they could do a good mini-series about Kiss. That way you could focus on each individual band member. Maybe do like a, 2 or 3 part mini-series about the band. I think you could do that since it doesn't look like they're shooting for a theatrical release. I think the Kiss story would make a great mini-series, but any of the individual band members, I think Peter and Gene's stories are the most compelling, then followed by Paul. Ace, there isn't really a good story there. And maybe you could do like a spin-off, could be like the Tommy Thayer story or something if it's really successful. But that's more thoughts from me on the Kiss biopic. I'm a big Kiss fan. I'm a big movie fan, I have a lot of ideas in my head, and sometimes I just like to get them off my chest. Let me know what you guys think. Am I all wet here? Do you just want to see salaciousness, sex, drugs, rock and roll, groupies, nudity, selling lots of records, playing to big crowds? Or are you like me? Do you think there should be more of a human interest, something more of substance, a little bit more there when you tell the Kiss story? Let me know what you think in the comments. Hope you guys dug this one, and we'll see you next time. Who's here?